Welcome. So I'm Shani Thornton, and I am a certified child life specialist. And my specialty is really working with children and families and helping them cope with illness, trauma, loss, and transitions. And I typically come from a role of child development. So I do a lot of educating and therapeutic activities involving creative arts and play and bibliotherapy to really give kids an understanding of what's happening, what their experience is, preparing them for new experiences, and giving them an outlet to express themselves and find some empowerment and communicate with their loved ones, and kind of building those advocacy skills and communication skills for them. So that's a little bit about myself. So we'll get started. So clearly right now, caregiving during the pandemic has been incredibly stressful. And I'm sure just kind of looking at some of these images, you can definitely relate. I am also a caregiver as well. So I live next door to my mom, who has 3 autoimmune illnesses, and she was diagnosed when I was very young. So I've kind of grown up into the role of being the daughter and being taken care of by her, but also taking on a caregiving role. And now as an adult, I've definitely become much more of a caregiver. And I also have 2 kids. So I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. So I am going through this pandemic as a parent and a caregiver as well, and trying to manage the distance learning, working from home, and trying to make sure that my mom, like my loved ones, anybody who I'm taking care of, is also very much protected during this time, because it's quite it's a frightening time with COVID. So a little bit about that. So we're going to go ahead and start off with a self-reflection. I always think it's a great idea to kind of just take a deep breath, reconnect, and find out how you're dealing and coping right now. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen, you can jot down these answers to the side. So before you start that, just take a big deep breath in, release it. And so the things I want you to write down is to describe yourself using 3 words. Write down something that is your biggest strength. What is something you're struggling with? And who or what inspires you? So I wrote down, 3 words to describe myself. As I said, I'm very compassionate. I have a pretty good sense of humor. I'm pretty funny. And I'm outgoing. My strengths are that I'm pretty confident, but yet I'm also grounded, where sometimes I'll have a little bit of like, did I do that wrong? Or that little kind of that check-in with your ego of not being, what's the word? Too confident, like cocky, right? I'm not that. I'm just confident in the work I do.
Yeah.
The areas that I struggle in are definitely, sometimes I take on way too much. I say yes to a lot of projects. And especially right now and this time of year that we're going through, sometimes I take on way too much, and then I get overwhelmed and just try to figure out how to get through it. But I'm learning slowly to say no to things. And the people who inspire me are my family. So my mom definitely 100% has always inspired me as a kid, just to how she has the strength to just continue through her days. My kids, the families that I work with, I do a lot of like grief support, and I do a lot of work with children who have like a loved one who's ill, or child who has an illness themselves. And every single one of them, they are just amazing human beings, and each and every one of them has always inspired me. So that's a little bit about my self-reflection. But for you, this next slide, I just recently saw this one yesterday, and it kind of, you look at it to figure out where you're falling right now, and for me, I've been a pendulum during this entire COVID time. Like one day I'm like totally fine, I am thriving. And then like a week later and I'm like, oh my God, this is crisis mode. So caregiving during the pandemic and parenting has been extremely hard. And I think for kids who are school age, it has been a bit of a challenge for them because they're pretty much all doing distance learning. It's been hard. And I know some kids are actually thriving in it. And there's others who are barely getting by and others who are really just it doesn't work for them. And I have one of both. So I have one who's doing okay, and I have one he needs to be in the classroom because it's just not, distance learning is not his cup of tea at all. So it puts a lot of pressure on us as parents of juggling, making sure that they're getting the right education, the experience that they need, but they're also being independent. It's hard for us to kind of find that balance. So, kids at this time, they really need to still have a lot of structure. They need to feel that safety and security, and that's done with routines, right? So just like we have our normal day-to-day routines, it's really helpful for kids to have the same thing, to know what to expect during their day. So whether they have a schedule written up, they have their class schedule for the day, but also just at home, like what that looks like, and to make sure it's being implemented. All of that stuff will bring a sense of security to kids, and it kind of normalizes everything. So it's not so chaotic. They'll know, they can have a better sense of control and knowing what to expect when safety and security is kind of put in place. Emotional validation is definitely a big one for kids at really anybody's age, from, when they're infants, we should be validating how they're feeling, all the way to adults. But for kids who are school age, they definitely have the vocab now to really express themselves on how they're feeling. And sometimes as parents, there could be a little bit of a struggle because we might think that they're not, they really don't feel that way, or we kind of dismiss their feelings. And we have to be, especially during this time, be much more aware of it. So for instance, if your child's struggling with something and they're saying like, oh, this is awful, and you're like, it's really not that big of a deal as a response, that's not going to make them feel great, right? The first thing we should do is just really validate, like, looks like you're having a hard time with that. Like, what's that like for you? Once we give them that validation, you're kind of opening up that door for communication and that connection with you as the parent. The child needs to feel like all of their feelings are validated, whether they're really uncomfortable, unpleasant feelings like anger and frustration and sadness and guilt, but also, good feelings where they're, excited or feeling proud, or joyful or loved. Those should also be highlighted. And as parents, like, we need to model that too. Like, we need to use that in our own language. I often am talking about feelings all the time, so my kids are like, stop. But I'm constantly saying things like, oh, I'm feeling great today, or I'm really proud of that, or you must feel really proud that you completed that on your own. You want to get that intrinsic type of motivation for kids to start to feel the good sides, especially during the pandemic. I think that's probably one of the hardest things right now, is for kids to have that social isolation. Again, that sense of normalcy and routines that they had, it's all gone, right? So everything that we've been experiencing with this pandemic is grief and loss. Like, all of those really, like, your normal routines of going to school with your cohort in your classroom, to, participating in sports and different activities like that, it's all gone, to just having regular play dates. That's all been pushed to the side. And we don't really even have a timeline to give to kids as to when those normal routines and activities will happen again. So it is incredibly challenging for kids. Some of the strategies that have been helpful that for school age kids is to still have some sort of communication with their friends, whether it's through, you know, the FaceTime, if they've got a, if they're into video games and you give them the passwords to get connected together, like on Roblox and Minecraft, like those are the big ones right now. There's Among Us is another big one for school age kids, that they can still feel that connection. So they're playing with their friends, but they're not physically with them. The other thing too that's been helpful for some kids to cope during this time, at least to find some sort of exposure group, right? Or a pod. So where they have like 1 or 2 kids where you know that those families are being really as safe as they can be, but you have that trust in them where you know that your kids can still get together socially and be together. And so your child's getting that break, right? That break from home, the break from you, and just being a kid without being constantly like, I almost feel like we're hovering our kids because we're together with them all the time now. And it's really important for kids to have that separation from us and kind of venture off a little bit. And it's really hard to not have those opportunities. So exposure groups are also another possibility, but again, that might not be for everybody. Another fun thing that I've seen kids do, and I've worked with kids virtually, is doing different virtual games where we play Uno together. They have a deck of Uno cards, I have a deck of Uno cards. We playing Battleship, like Candyland. You can really play like any of those board games, but there's also a lot of great games that are available online. So like Jeopardy, there's Jeopardy Labs. That's a great one where you can actually make up your own game on there and have kids play. And it's a great way for the families to actually connect too. But that's definitely been a challenge, I think, for the majority of kids, is just that social peer isolation. The other part is the emotional and family attachment and the bonds that we have with our kids right now. So as depleted and as stressed out as we can be, it's still really important to reconnect. And for this age group, for really, you know, for younger ones and for school age, it's through play, you know, where we can get on the floor, we can play a board game, we can, you know, if they're into like army guys or cars or whatever they're into, building things, but having that time with them where you're not distracted by your phone, you're not having to think about 5 million things in your head about taking care of the household and work and other priorities, and just focusing on your child for even as small as like 10 minutes every couple of days. It really builds that that connection and that safety and security and that relationship that's really healthy to get through this time of having kids in general. When you have a loved one who's ill is really hard. And for school age kids, they're definitely concrete thinkers, but they're beginning to go into an abstract type of mindset. So they're able to understand more information, and a lot of times they're really curious about things. So they ask a lot of different questions. And sometimes you can be a little thrown off on some of their questions that they might be asking. So some of the tools that I like to use with kids, and I think they're really helpful for parents to incorporate to kind of bring in some medical education or just body education on what's happening, is to incorporate different materials. Like this is a game that I use, or it's like basically like a little body, right? Where they can take apart all the different types of organs and the bones, and it gives them an opportunity to really kind of take a closer look as to how our body works. you know, we can't see the inside of our body, but you have something like that where they can really get in there and touch and feel and ask questions about how this works. And you educate them on how amazing our bodies really are and how they work. It's kind of, it's, you know, it's all science too, to throw that in. It's mind-blowing. The other things that I bring in for kids too is books about the human body. So Usborne has a great, they have huge series on body books, but there's some amazing ones for school age kids. And again, I use this all the time to just educate kids about their loved one's illness or their own illness. We educate them on what their organs are used for, and then how the disease or the illness or the medical trauma or a traumatic accident might have impacted them, and how they can then manage and cope with it. So bringing in information to just give them a basic, you know, level of understanding of what's occurring will then open up the door to open up those opportunities of expression. So all those things that they might not feel comfortable sharing, of like, you know, are they going to die? Is something that I can get? Are you going to get this? The contagious, is this something that I caused? This opens up that platform where you can answer those questions. And it's something that you might even want to bring up too, to explain that, you know, if it's contagious or not contagious, or how do we protect ourselves? And it brings it into the next step of like COVID, right? And how we can protect our loved one during this time, and open up that conversation. Another really good book that I love for illness education it's called When Someone Has a Very Serious Illness, and it's a workbook, and it gives kids the opportunity to kind of really dive in deeper to their thoughts and their feelings, and gives them a place where they can express it. You know, drawing, writing, coloring, and having a parent there to kind of work with them on that, and name and validate those emotions that they might be feeling, and find ways to help them cope with those emotions. That again is going to bring that sense of attachment with your parenting, and safety and security. So some different therapeutic activities. I know we covered a little bit of it, but these are kind of some of my favorite. Definitely quarantine bingo is a fun one to play. And this is something you can do with, you know, friends and family too, virtually. But, you know, the pick a stick is, I do this with the families all the time, and I call it my jar of hope, where I have the kids write down on popsicle sticks things that they want to do with their family, right? So maybe it's a movie night, maybe it's a one-on-one time, maybe it's a board game, something where the child has that control. And it's really fun, because as parents, we tend to make a lot of the choices, but when we give the kids the opportunity to write it out and create it, and then you give them this thing, and we're saying, okay, you know, let's pick from our activity kit this week. What should we do? And they pick something out and you draw it. And it's kind of like a surprise, but it's a nice way for that time to reconnect, instead of saying, okay, let's get off the screens, let's do something. And then we're like, well, what do we do? You know, what should we do? Well, go here, and let's look up some of the fun things that we can check out. It definitely, outdoor play is really important, especially during the pandemic. We need to have those endorphins released in our body. It's really healthy for us. It's healthy for kids. We need that vitamin D. We're lucky that we live in Northern California, where the weather's not really terrible during the winter time. So getting out, we have a lot of opportunities to go, you know, hiking, or getting out to just explore. Is a great way, again, to kind of disconnect from, you know, the screens and stuff, but to reconnect as families and just give us that kind of respite that we need. Again, Usborne provides a lot of great books. I have the Hello Happy and also the No Worries. This is great for school age kids too, because it's almost like a graphic novel. It's got great images and opportunities for kids to write down things that, you know, are upsetting them, their fears, their worries, but also there's a lot of opportunities to bring empowerment and self-confidence. I think it's useful for kids to do, you know, with a parent, but also to like just give to them with a set of, you know, colored pencils and put it in their room. And maybe before they go to bed, or if they're just kind of bored, they can go to this. And it's a lot, oftentimes, especially going to bed, I think kids tend to really start to have some of the heavier things weigh on them, as it is for adults too. When they have an out like this, they can place it in here, and it'll kind of just ease the nervousness that they might be feeling to get a better night's sleep. And then of course the feelings check-in, I think, is really important. Having some sort of visual in your house where you can just check in with them on how they're coping. I like this one. I just found it tonight, where it kind of just break down like all those, how they're feeling now, how they're dealing with school, how they're coping with friends. It's a nice way for them to kind of have that visual and again, that self-reflection and self-awareness of like how they're feeling, and then how they express it to you. And then what do we do with it, right? We do with that emotion. We can feel validated and connected to you, but it's important to let it out too, and know that you need to push the emotion away. We need to actually feel it and move through it versus like pushing it down and just covering it up with another emotion. We need to give kids that outlet. I've noticed a lot of kids, and I don't know if this is true with your son right now too, but there's a lot of frustration and anger. And so kids they need a physical release. They need aggressive play, which is really normal for kids to have. So whether you have like one of those blow up like bop it bags that they can like get on, I've had my kids we'll take a big giant butcher piece of paper and we'll write things that are upsetting them. They'll put it on there. We'll go outside and we'll get water balloons, and they just chuck it at it on this target and kind of just have that physical release. I've done it with toilet paper, where they get toilet paper wet, although that's like a scarce item right now. So I had to jump to water balloons during that time. But you can do anything really where they can just physically throw it. Using a dart gun is good, but they need to have that release, and they need to know it's okay to be angry and frustrated. And then how can we let it out, but in a healthy way? So those are some of my favorites. I've seen kids make COVID pinatas, where they've created them with like paper mache, and then they go out with their baseball bat and they just beat it down. And again, it's that like they just need that release, because everybody right now is frustrated, especially as we're going into the holiday season. Holidays are going to look different for a lot of families, so they need to have that outlet and that validation that it's okay. And again, the medical education and incorporating different tools to help kids understand what's happening with their loved one, so that they can again have that communication and that dialogue, so they're not storing a lot of anxiety and worries about that. A couple things too that I've used too is it's called a mood tracker. So this is a jelly bean one, where I have kids write down here, like in the legend, a different emotion, and then they color in their jelly bean to identify it. And it's so interesting because sometimes I think they're shocked by kind of those emotions. So kids have written down, you know, anger, sadness, jealousy, guilt. And as they start to color it in and you get it back, you're like, wow, I didn't realize I was like that angry, or I noticed I'm much more sad. I have more sad jelly beans than I do happy. So again, this is a really nice kind of tool to kind of have some self-awareness on how you're doing. I think worries are really normal for kids, especially having a loved one who's ill. School age wise too, because you're bringing in other emotions too, on like how other peers are going to be looking at you, that maybe your family's a little bit different. How do they respond to that? You've going into a little bit of bullying at this stage. So it's important for kids to have a place where they can write down their worries. So this is super easy. I literally just found different shapes or different size stars that I printed out. And so it gives kids an option of like how big your worry is, right? Do you have is this worry really big, or is it just like a little worry? Is it a medium-sized worry? So that they can write or draw the image of what is their worries and then place it somewhere, whether they create like a worry monster, like a worry eater. I've got one over here, or they put it in a dream catcher, and maybe those worries are going to be caught as they're dreaming. There's a lot of opportunities creatively that you can help kids kind of let go of those worries and their fears, so they're not holding on to them and kind of building up. And the last kind of small thing, again, for just like bringing it back down to mindfulness that we didn't really even touch into, but we know self-care is so important for us as caregivers, but to instill that with our kids is really important as well. And teaching them to take some big deep breaths, to slow down, to kind of feel more present in the moment, and teaching them those mindfulness, meditation, yoga, incorporating a lot of that will bring a sense of calming, especially when things get a little bit more chaotic. This is a mindfulness labyrinth. So you do it with your finger, and you teach your kids how to kind of just slowly, make its way all the way around. But while they're doing it, they're present and they're in the moment. They have to stay focused. You can teach them about deep breathing as well. So there's so many different outlets for kids to tap into, and for us as parents as well, that I think that the more strategies that we can implement at home, the more safe and secure they're going to feel, and manage this crazy time that we're in. And we're wrapping up. So I just want one last thing too, is we're hitting into the holidays, and holidays might look different this year, is trying to find still some sort of normalcy, routines, rituals that families have that your kids can have some sense of control on. So whether that's that they want a particular meal, maybe they can participate in making it. If their loved one is not able to be at the family gathering, or they're not allowed to, they can't have a larger family gathering, how are you still going to be able to incorporate that sense of connection with your loved one? So maybe that's the night you do like a family game night virtually, or you just share stories about the past holidays that you've had and what your hopes are for next year. But I think identifying with that this year's different and it's hard, but as a family that you guys are working together to get through it is going to be hopefully the most powerful kind of message, that you're doing it together, that you're not alone, which I think is really helpful.
Quick overview on Oro Caregiver Resource Center. Our mission is to improve the well-being of family caregivers and provide support throughout the caregiving process. This is a new series for us, and our hope is to tap into our sandwich generation caregivers, those who are parenting and caregiving simultaneously. Education and training is one of the basic services that we offer, and we're always looking to provide more relevant more relevant content and education that really does help our caregivers with their specific situations. We also offer specialized services in the form of family consultation, case management, respite care, counseling, and legal consultation. If you need to touch base with your family consultant, please do call this number. listed here, and feel free to follow us on social media to check out other educational offerings and news and events.